Brilliant. Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon now. So welcome to our BELMAS Leadership Preparation and Development Research Interest Group. If you haven't met me before, my name's Deb Outhwaite. I have had the joy of co-convening this group for the last 8 years, and I am just in the throes of passing it on, both to Susanne and to Bernie. And there is a call going out in the BELMAS newsletter to see if anybody else would like to join them in that co-convener process. Now I've become chair of BELMAS and a senior visiting fellow at LSE. So I'm just finding myself a little bit, trying to focus in on the areas that I need to now. So it's great that Susanne and Bernie have offered to come and co-convene moving forward. I think that spells things out really nicely for the RIG moving forward, because we've done quite a lot of work in this RIG over that time period. So I think it's really important. So that's me. I'm going to pass over to Susanne and then move across our screen. So if we'd like to introduce ourselves with name, title, where you're from, and your interest in the LPD RIG. And then the people who signed up are on the list in the chat there as well. So some of those hopefully will be joining us later on. Susanne, over to you.
Thank you so much. It's good to be back. It was some time ago since we had the last RIG meeting online. So Susanne Sahlin, I work from August this year. I have not moved, but moved my work from Sweden to Norway. So I work at the Norwegian University of Science and Technology in Trondheim as an associate professor. So, and still have my main experiences from Swedish leadership preparation and development. So I'm kind of excited to have invited guests and researchers from Norway and from Denmark today. And of course, one of my main research interests is focusing on leadership preparation and development. So I'm happy to be a part of this great RIG.
Lovely. I'm going to go to our speakers for today's session first, as we've started with Susanne. So if I come to you next, Lars, and hear you after that, and then we'll get everybody else on the chat to introduce themselves once speakers have gone first. So if you go next, Lars.
Yeah, my name is Lars Frode Frederiksen. They speak just Frode, but you cannot pronounce it. And at the moment, for some weeks still to come, I'm associate professor at University of Southern Denmark. And my interest is, in a broad sense, educational leadership. And also, I've been part of a master program for 4 years for leaders in upper secondary school. And using that connection between the leadership education and the field of educational leadership to study the development of the leadership profession. Is it a professionalization process going on, or is it just something we are claiming? So I have practical and theoretical interests during the years. Thank you. Yeah, it was okay.
Brilliant. That's great. Thank you. Pia?
Yeah.
Thank you. And thank you for having me today. I'm lucky to be a colleague of Susanne, who started working at NTNU in August, like she said. And before I entered the academic world, I did that rather late in my life, when I was in my late 40s. And before that, I've been working at the school owners level, and I've also been working in secondary schools for a number of years. So my interest goes into the direction of how this interplay between school owners and schools really are. And I'm also into creativity in leadership and the human being as a creative being. So that's a tiny bit of what I'm interested in. I think I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you.
That's lovely though, Pia, and really interesting for us to hear the background. So we did some work with Pam a few years ago in the Cambridge Centre, and Megan Crawford and I published a book chapter in one of Pam Bernard's books on creative leadership, So it's a great series on creative leadership there. Brilliant. So really great to hear. So we're just going to work the way across my screen just so that other delegates can introduce themselves today, and then we'll go back to our speakers to present. So Bernie,
you also have Jakob from Denmark, who is the second presenter from Denmark. So let him introduce himself as well, please.
Yes, so Jacob, you go next because I had to move my screen on then to be able to see you.
Okay, yeah. Thanks a lot and nice to meet you. My name is Jakbo Boje and I'm also from University of Southern Denmark, so colleague to Frode. I'm an associate professor there and I've done some research on school leadership and particularly professionalization of school leadership. Frode and I and two other colleagues, we did a book on that a couple of years ago. So in relation to preparation and development of school leaders, it is, you can say, the more encompassing theme of professionalizing school leaders that I'm interested in. How does education play a part in such a professionalization project? Yeah.
That's great, Jakob. Thanks. That's really useful background information. Okay, so we're going to just introduce delegates very quickly. So working across my screen, I've got Martin and then Tony and then Bernie after that.
Hello, colleagues. It's lovely to meet you. I'm Martin Kerridge. I am from the Centre for Educational Leadership at Liverpool John Moores University, where I'm a senior lecturer. I'm delighted to join you this afternoon. My particular interest, we have just validated a new MBA in Educational Leadership programme, and I've taken on some responsibilities for executive leadership courses for school and college leaders. So yeah, really looking forward to hearing all from you later today. So nice to meet you all.
Lovely. Thanks, Martin. And you've just lost our colleague, Peter Wollstonecroft, to Man Met, of course, as well. Tony.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Tony Bush. I have the privilege of being president of BELMAS and editor-in-chief of Educational Management, Administration and Leadership. I'm professor of educational leadership at the University of Nottingham and also visiting professor at Mid Sweden University, where I've had the pleasure of working with Susanne for some time, and also meeting you, Pierre, at an occasion where we both presented. I have extensive interest in leadership preparation. I've done research in South America, in Asia, and very recently in both Africa and in Europe. So pleasure to be here today. Looking forward to the presentations. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Good evening here. It's almost 11, a bit over 11 o'clock at night. My name's Bernie Moreno. I'm a lecturer at the Faculty of Education at the University of Melbourne. I'm also, as of this week, adjunct lecturer at the University of Limerick, where I'll be there supporting their preparation programs as well. My interest really comes from the work that I did in my PhD in leadership succession and in new principles, which of course has led me to continue to be interested in the preparation of principles. This year as well, I'm connecting with Susanne and we're doing some research, which we hope to have our paper accepted at BELMAS for that. And I'm also a council member for BELMAS and interested in leadership preparation, but as of recently also with my colleagues here at the university, we're looking at just early interventions of that leadership preparation, how early and what's happening in that space. In particular, this year, we've done a research project that we'll be presenting findings at ICSI on the leadership demands of early career teachers. And so we pose that question about how early is too early for leadership preparation as well.
Interesting, Bernie, because we have early career teachers in England, you know, with our system being decimated at the moment, being told to already do MPQs, even though they're still on the early career framework. So really
very much like here.
Yeah, interesting. So Harry and then Kathy, and then we'll move to our presentations. Good afternoon, Harry.
Yeah, good afternoon. Harry Mante from Ghana. and I'm in my second year of PhD leadership. Yeah, and I'm looking at preparation for school principals in Ghana. Yeah, currently conducting my field work. Yeah, currently in Ghana.
Okay, Harry, the signal is not great, but I heard that you're in the second year of your PhD there in Ghana on educational leadership. So if you want to put any more details about that and an email for people to contact you in the chat so that people can follow up, that would be really great, because the signal was kind of coming and going there. So if you could do that so that people can connect with you, that would be great. If anybody else wants to put their email address in the chat so that people can connect with them, that would be great. Thanks, Harry. Great that you're here. Kathy?
Hi, my name is Kathy Schiffman. I'm a professor of leadership studies at Shenandoah University in the United States, and I coordinate our Doctor of Education and Educational Leadership program. Recently joined Belmas, and I'm very interested in looking at international models for leadership preparation, as well as how we can internationalize a bit more our own educational leadership preparation. So I'm looking forward to the conversation. Thanks.
Lovely. That's absolutely great, Kathy. Thanks very much. Okay, so I'm going to move back to you, Susanne, and I'm going to ask you, as you've convened today's session, to deliver it how you choose to. Thank you very much, everybody. Really looking forward to hearing what you've got to say this afternoon.
Thank you so much. Well, I think we are a few years back, we have had different guests and presentations in these online meetings, and we have returned to the Scandinavian models of leadership preparations and the Scandinavian perspective. And I think from there, the idea came that we could try to bring together a few different Scandinavian perspectives. So that's what we've done, and I'm very pleased and happy to have been in contact with fellow colleagues who has also accepted being a part of today's session from Norway and from Denmark, and I'm going to try to present the Swedish perspective. So I think we have said that we should get 15 minutes each. So this morning I rehearsed, so try to talk it through, so at least then it was under 15 minutes for me. So I will do my best to try to do that. I think we had kind of an order with Denmark first, then Sweden, and last Norway in the presentation that went out. So I'm happy to do it like that. So, and I think if we can do the presentations first and bring together discussion after that, then we'll have more time to discuss. I think we have some similarities and some differences between our countries. And if we have questions, you could try to write a few of them in the chat during the time someone of us presents. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that
Jakob and Pia?
I think that sounds perfect. Ray Chatwin's on his way in as well to the group now. The other thing we normally do, just so that you're all aware, is we normally stop the recording at the end of the presentations, and then people can speak frankly about what's going on in their national systems without worrying that it's going to go on the Belmas website. So it's only your presentations that get recorded for the website, just so that you're all aware. Thanks, Susanne.
So I think we should then give the floor to Frode and Jakob, please. You can try to share your presentation, and I will try to mute myself.
Will you share, Frode, or I think you're okay.
Great.
Frode, you're muted.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't find it on my screen now. Yeah, we have emphasized the development because it's not preparation as it is in many countries, because, as we said, the preparation is experience. So normally, your leaders are leaders before they attend to an educational program or development program. So, and many times when we are comparing Denmark to others, we can say we have two rather distinct systems in the basic educational system. In the primary school, or we call it the folkeskole, because the people's school is in principle for everyone. And we said education is compulsory, not schooling, because it's legal to teach your children at home if you meet some requirements. So when you're 6 years old, everybody goes to schools, and the primary school, the folkeskole, are very close connected to the municipalities. So there could be differences between the municipalities in Denmark, but they all have of course the same law, and they are financed and regulated by the municipality. And beside that, most of the schools, they are public, but we now have maybe also a bigger market for private schools, free schools, more ideological schools, maybe some kind of elite schools. We have tried, there's discussions, should we make the market more restricted and regulations more social? But there is a market for the private school, especially both in the big cities, if we have big cities in Denmark, and also in rural areas. When the public schools are closed, then the parents can start a new school. There is also due to both from pedagogical reasons and financial reasons, tendency to bigger schools. And one of the differences that teachers and also the leaders, they are trained on university colleges, most of them. And the upper secondary schools, after you're 16, it's not compulsory, but the politicians hope that about 19% of each year of the youth each year will go to the further school. They are structured in another way. They have their own finance. They own their own buildings, and they can, if they are totally lucky, they can go bankruptcy. The teachers and leaders are trained at the universities, so there might be a little difference. And also there's some bigger schools, but also not only bigger schools, but in some years we have some mergers between various kinds of education. It sometimes create a new layer of leaders who not always are aware of the unique education. So it is some various governing structures. The difference is very distinct, but in the day-to-day practice, in the daily life at the schools, we cannot see all the difference because they have more or less the same issues to struggle with. So the folkeskoles, they are related to the municipalities. They have a board. The leaders are hired by the municipalities, and if they don't manage well, according to some figures, there can be inspections. So the better the figures are, the more autonomous they are feeling. And the upper secondary schools, they are competing even more, because most of the finance are from the students. So especially in the bigger cities, there's and maybe I'll call it unintended competition, which maybe lead to uneven distribution of the students. And the last years, it has been a very, very big political issue in Denmark. They also have a board, and in contrary to the folkeskole, it's the board who hires the leaders. and also they can be subject to inspections if they're not managed well, according to some figures. And we will mention some of the basic differences between the educational systems. And the folkeskole, most of them take a diploma at the university college. We have a scheme just in a moment with systematize some of the difference. And the education are more ruled from the central whole. The ministry determine more or less the content of the education. And the later years we have had some reforms which we'll come into later on. And in the difference in the upper secondary schools, most of the teachers eventually had a master degree from a university. It's not a requirement, so you could be leader of the biggest upper secondary school in Denmark without any formal education, besides your original university degree in, for instance, history or mathematics. So but the development and maybe also the competition leads to more and more have a master degree from the various university. Copenhagen Business School, our own university in Odense, also from Aarhus and Aalborg University have some supply for master degrees. There are more difference. Providers determine what will we emphasize here. Should it be, for instance, data or not data? Should it be personal leadership or other kind of theories? But it required accreditation from the ministry. So we are not free to do all things, but we have some rather big differences.
Yes, just to follow up, we made this table where we try to spell out some of the main characteristics of preschool and basic school leader education. So Frode here already has mentioned some of it, but I can just elaborate a bit. The programs for preschool leaders and leaders in the basic school, the folkeskole, not high school, they're called DOL, DIL, and DIS. So it's a public leadership or diploma in leadership or diploma in school leadership. And leaders or coming leaders, they can choose themselves which of these programs they want to enroll on. And we try to make some simple comparisons to Sweden and Norway, and you can correct us in a short while if we're wrong, but just to get a better picture of what we're doing ourselves, actually. The duration is 60 ECTS, and you can do it normally 2 years part-time or 1 year full-time. Compared to Sweden, please correct us if we're wrong, it's less, it's 30 ECTS, and you take it along 3 years, whereas in Norway it's 75 ECTS, at least for the example that we mentioned here, uddannelsesledelse. The level, it's not a master's degree in Denmark. It's a somewhat peculiar invention. You call it diploma in leadership, and it's something between a bachelor level and a master's level. So you can take this diploma on basis of a bachelor's degree, but it doesn't give you a master's degree. Whereas, for instance, in Norway, it is at master's level, and in Sweden, it's not at master's level, at least not rektorsprogrammet. Providers, Frode already mentioned a bit. It is either the municipalities, the DOL, they have their own sort of training program, or it's the university colleges, which is something quite different in Denmark. You distinguish between university colleges or universities. I think the same distinction exists in Norway and Sweden. But for instance, in Norway, you have more new universities, that is university colleges that have become universities. But in Denmark, we're a bit behind there. So we still distinguish between universities and university colleges. And for instance, in university colleges, they have a very small amount of time for doing research. Admission, and this is perhaps interesting in the bigger perspective compared to USA and UK. It is non-obligatory, but it is expected that you enroll on such a program within 2 or 3 years. But as I said, it is not obligatory. Whereas, for instance, in Sweden, it is obligatory, and I'm not quite aware about Norway, but I don't think it is obligatory. But still, the expectation is there. And as I said, you do it in Denmark on basis of a bachelor degree plus 2 years experience. And this is something that I think really distinguishes the Nordic context from USA and UK. We talk about leader development. It is not preparatory. You don't have to enroll in a program in order to become a leader in preschool or basic school. You do it after you have become a leader. And that is, I think, the same in Sweden and Norway. The students, they are almost exclusively preschool or school teachers. They're all experienced. They must have at least 2 years experience before they enroll on the program. It is mostly women, especially for preschool teachers, not surprisingly. I think something like 80% of preschool teachers are women. The content is focused on what is called personal leadership, leadership of professionals, organization theory, strategic leadership, and then you have some optional modules. And in Denmark, we don't have internship. And I don't think that it exists in Sweden and Norway either. But some years ago, we had the pleasure of meeting an Australian colleague who told us that in Australia they had started building internship into the program. Yes, one more slide.
Yes, yeah. The next one is, we think it's important, but it's not easy, because now it's what's called a minefield, because all kind of educations, they have some tensions, and also for educational leadership, because one of our what's called basic assumption is that educational leadership as a scientific field is contested compared to other kind of, if we perceive it as a profession. So compared to other kinds of professions, for instance, lawyers or public accountants or engineering who should build bridges, there's a more common sharing knowledge, because either they don't know how to build a bridge or how you have to follow the country's laws. So this field is more what's called, there's some paradigmatic struggles. What is it and what are required from a leader, and what role should a leader have on schools? So it leads to some tensions we all have to try to balance, because there's some specific demands, there's some specific wishes for the supply, because education, should it open up the world with new perspective, that's difficult, or closing it, now you have learned that, now you can go to practice and practice that. So how do we balance with the solutions, or what's called some kind of tools or questions or perspective, analytical perspectives? And that also leads to the tension between, if we can find the best kind of education, why will all just do that? So can we develop some standards as we see in other countries, or should we have variations so there may be a better fit between the single student and the supply for the diploma and or the master program? So the same issue as with most education is education might be troublesome, for it might be hard. You can have doubt of yourself. How can I use this? But it's necessary for most education, and we maybe claim that it's also included for leadership education. It's not an easy task. It's a risky business. That make it more interesting, but sometimes also more difficult. And here we have some of the latest reforms.
Yes, this is just to sort of round off. This is perhaps the latest agenda for the leadership educational programs. Some years ago, there was a committee set up to examine the existing programs and make some recommendations. And this committee recommended, broadly speaking, a stronger focus or emphasis on practice. But you could say that the program was already highly practice-oriented because, as I said, the admission is based on experienced teachers. You were talking about experienced teachers. The providers are very close to practice. There are not universities, and sort of the assumption is that there is no need of internship exactly because the students, they already know practice, but still apparently we need more practice orientation in the Danish system. So that is one of the things that that is a puzzle at the moment, and everybody talks about practice without perhaps really knowing what this implies and what the consequences should be for the program.
Yeah. Was it 15 minutes? Thank you from here.
I believe 16 minutes, but a really interesting presentation. I have several questions, but I will hold myself back. So I do what we said, take them after the 3 presentations. We move on to Sweden then, and that would be me. So I will try to share my screen like that. And then it would be great if I also can see you at the same time. Let's see if I can manage to do that. I think I can, yes, good. Then I can see you up here. That's great. It's always more depressing to just talk out and don't be able to see anyone. So I presented myself a little bit in the beginning, and then based on that, I said I have most of my experiences from the Swedish context, still learning a lot in the Norwegian context. And I have been the director of the principal training program at Mid Sweden University for 3 to 5 years in different leader positions. And I have been a part of building and develop that program at Mid Sweden University from 2015. So today, based on that, among other things, I'm going to try to present the Swedish perspective in this Scandinavian session on leadership preparation and development, focusing on the Swedish context. So let's see if I can get one slide ahead. Yes. Sweden, just a short introduction. Sweden is known to have a well-established welfare system that kind of prioritizes education, resulting in high-quality educational system, and I think we have a rather good reputation globally. But with that said, not a perfect system. We have problems with equality, and as all of you perhaps know, we just got the new PISA report, and it says about what the second sentence here. We have declining knowledge results again. So just now it is like that, and it has been in recent years. And that's a matter for governance and policymakers in Sweden to have addressed in different ways. So we will come back to that. And this is just a slide about who becomes a leader or actually a principal in Sweden. Preschool principals, they are basically preschool teachers who have taken on a leadership role. It can be teachers or leisure teachers, and sometimes social workers or guidance counselors. And it's about the same way for school principals. They are basically teachers moving on to a leadership position. Could be deputy principals first and then to take on the formal principal position. But it can also be social workers or HR specialists and so on. So this image here on the slide, I made it with AI just the other day. So I'm not sure if all Swedish principals are dressed kind of in this very formal dress. And I'm not sure about the guy that's opening the door, but that's how AI would like thought a Swedish female principal looked like. Because we have a lot of female principals, just as our Danish colleagues just presented. Because the average Swedish principal in preschool and compulsory school is a woman. She's around 50 years old, and she has a preschool or a teacher education, and she has worked for around 11 years as a teacher before taking on this role. And she remains in the same school as the year before, and she often has 2 deputy school leaders or principals by her side to lead the school. And if we talk about the Swedish principal in preschool, they often have more than one unit they are responsible for, but around 100 children and 20 employees. But staying in the same school, that's not always the case. We have a rather big migration on principals moving from one school to another. And this is just a slide on how the preschool and school are based on numbers. We have around almost 5,000 preschool principals, and they lead around almost 10,000 preschools, and 22% of those preschools are municipal. And then we have independent preschool or private-owned preschools. And of course, they are 90% of women. And 4 out of 5 children, 1 to 5 years old in preschool. And on average, each child group in preschool has around 15 children. And some preschool principals also teach, some or work with the children. And in school, we have around 8,000 Swedish principals, except apart from having deputy principals, and they lead around 10,000 Swedish schools. 60% are women. We have more men higher up in the educational system, in the upper secondary school and in adult education. And the average school in Sweden has around almost 200 students. But generally in Sweden, we have rather small schools. And a principal can be responsible for more than one school. and principals seldom teach. There are examples, but it's not the normal principal or the average principal. And if we look at the school law, the new Education Act from 2010, we had a preschool manager, but that changed in 2018 and went from being a preschool manager to be a principal. So the government wanted the preschool manager to be titled a principal, because we see the policy or the government see the preschool as the beginning of a cohesive educational school system. And the preschool principal also has the pedagogical leadership for this curriculum-based activity in preschools. And based on that, it became mandatory even for preschool principals to participate in the National Principal Training Program. That was not the case before. So that's rather new. Oh, let's see. If I say something about the professional development and trajectory for aspiring principals in Sweden, let's see, I must click a bit more. I would say, if I zoom out a bit and say school leadership or principal training has been an education in constant change in Sweden. We have had systematic training for school leaders and principals since the mid-70s. And before that, we had school leader training too, but in smaller versions and with several different approaches. And today, the National Principal Training Program, it's a state-regulated education for professional principals in all school forms, and even for staff that has kind of a corresponding leadership function in curriculum-controlled activities. They can also be a part of this principal training program, and it's mandatory since 2010. And we will come back to that based on what our Danish colleagues mentioned. If we look at this continuous professional development for principals, pre-service, it's optional before you have taken on a role as a deputy or a school principal, preschool principal. You have a pre-service program for aspiring school leaders, 7.5 credits. It's rather new, and it's the National Agency of Education that have provided it. So we have around 7 universities in Sweden that provide this program now, mainly preschool teachers, some deputy principals, but rather few. But then when you become a principal, it's mandatory to start the principal training program within 1 year. So you are a principal and you have access to a business that you lead, talking about this internship part. They kind of have access to their own practice during the time they are participating in the program. I will come back to talk a bit more about this principal program. But then once you are a principal and you have you're finished with this National Principal Program, you also have some in-service optional program and courses. And the National Agency of Education provides rather many courses and networks for experienced principals in preschools and schools that they can undertake if they're interested in their own professional development. And of course, they can go on to take a master, and they can go on to PhD studies after that. But it's not so many principals that do that as of today. If I say something shortly about our principal program, I have already mentioned some things. It's a national government training program, and it has strong professional elements, and it's also on advanced academic level. So those principals that want to continue with their professional development can take with them 30 credits and validate it when they go on to a master's program. I've already said this, and it's 30 credits, and they undertake the program over 3 years. They are expected to have around 20% of their working time for studies. But if you ask those principals about that, they don't have that time. So they do it full time, working as principals, and then they have to do this on weekends and evenings. Today we have 7 universities in Sweden that provide the program. They have a 6-year-long contract with the National Agency of Education. So we are soon in Sweden going on to the next round to apply for being providers for the next version of the program that will start in 2027. This is a short, just providing a slide with the content in the program. We have 3 different courses: school leadership, school law, and then we have management, organization, and quality, 10 credits each. And then we have a content that's rather important that's called peer mentoring, where the students or principals discuss their problems in small groups and base it on theory and practice. And based on many program evaluations, they really appreciate this part of the program, and they say their perceptions are that they feel they kind of get a stronger professional identity and feel rather more confident in their principal role. And the program is based on a national target document, but then each university provide their own course syllabus. But as also our Danish colleagues said, we have some ongoing policy changes in Sweden based on leadership development and preparation. OECD pointed out that the Swedish school need more comprehensive strategies, among other things related to the management of the schools. So Swedish government policy has presented a proposal with an overall strategy and a professional program for teachers, preschool teachers, and school leaders for many different reasons, but one is, of course, to strengthen the management of schools on a national level. And this is how the proposal is, how it's presented now. This is for principals, and the whole national proposal is much more focused on teachers' professional development. Perhaps there's 10-15% about principals, but they are supposed to have 2 levels of competence. One is when you go undertake the national principal program, and then you can get on another level, be accredited principal or preschool principals. And then you have much longer experience over time for around 6 to 8 years. And you have to have completed the school leadership training program. You have to done several other steps. But this is just a proposal for the moment. And my last slide. I think I can say that the training of principals in Sweden is both well established and institutionalized. It's been here for a very long time. It's not going away. But despite that we have had so many professionalization efforts, principals still have many challenges in their everyday practice. and they shoulder more and more leadership responsibilities. They don't have a good work environment and so on. And as a university academic, I know for a fact that me and my colleagues, we have a big challenge in balancing our critical mission as researchers and as providers for this program, based on that we are in a politically steered system and that we have this national agency of education that provides and dictates what to do in the program. And last but not least, we have done some comparative studies, among other things, together with England and Russia, where I think we can say that Sweden can serve as an example of a more context-sensitive leadership preparation program, both for aspiring principals and for principals. So I will stop there and say thank you very much. And if you're interested in the references I have used in these presentations, they will be on the last slide when we put up our presentations as PDF documents on Belma's website. So Pia, I'm handing over to you. I will stop sharing my screen.
Thank you. I'll try to share my screen now. And so there we are. Can you see this all right?
No.
No.
No, not yet.
Let's see if I can just get this sorted and try sharing again. Here we are. Now that's better.
Yes, that's perfect. Thank you.
I just need to go back a few more. So let's start to say, sorry for not introducing myself earlier on. My name is Pia Hagerup, and I'm an associate professor in organization and leadership in education. And I work at NTNU, where I get to spend half my time teaching and the other half doing research. So let's get on with it. Interesting to hear about the current state in Denmark and Sweden. I might not go into corrections, but maybe some adjustments of the Danish example here. Very interesting to hear. Norway is a nation that is characterized by what we may describe as democratic values, the right to be heard and influenced, and a social safety net that guarantees that everyone is taken care of at large. And as of education, knowledge and education for everyone is a clear state priority. Hence, education is available and free. In addition, education from years 1 to 10 is compulsory. And like in Denmark, you may apply to the school owner to do homeschooling. That is very rare. It almost never happens. So another example stating how education is prioritized, we find also in higher education. For instance, PhD candidates is usually paid from 400,000 to 600,000 Norwegian krone per year over a period of 3 to 4 years. So we get employed, we get a decent salary. You don't have to have rich parents to do a PhD. So that is equal to 4,000 to 6,000 pounds a year. But even with a financial system that set aside about 10,000 pounds per capita in primary schools, and they also invest in several curriculum forms, invest in several quality reforms. Like Susanne said, the PISA shock still happens. And we had the results a couple of days ago. And what is really, really troublesome is that those pupils and students that score in the lower area, they keep dipping down. The students who are successful keep on being successful. and we know who they are. They come from homes, resourceful homes, interesting parents, highly educated parents, and so on. So what to do? One of the main national strategies is to focus on formal education for school principals, and that is what I'm going to talk about now. So let's move on to the next picture. The tradition of recruiting for the position of principal follow the traditional principle of primus inter pares. And according to the Education Act, applicants for principal positions must have pedagogical competence, whatever that might be. And this is a vague concept that can be challenged. In practice, it means that applicants that they may provide basic pedagogical competence can apply. And like Susanne said, that could be a broad variety of people, not only school people, school teachers or people who works in schools. And furthermore, the Education Act states that principals must have necessary leadership qualification. That is also quite vague. And there are no clear guidelines regarding this matter. It's also worth noting that recruiting new principals is difficult. Even in urban areas, there are few applicants, and in rural areas, sometimes none. Picture 4 and 5, I will just skip now, but I will send you the presentation, and this is just facts and statistics, and it's also already been mentioned by Denmark and Sweden here. Mostly women, status is getting lower, salaries are getting lower, and one can wonder why no one wants to become a principal. So I'll skip to picture number 6. And in 2009, the inception of the National Training Program for Principals in primary and secondary school marked a pivotal moment known as rektorutdanningen, or in some kind of English here, director's education, with the first cohort commencing in 2010. And I started working in this program in 2013. So to keep it short, I will henceforth just use the abbreviation RU. That is like the training program for principals in Norway. So RU represents a tangible response to national political ambitions, aligning with the overarching goal of enhancing the quality of students' learning outcomes and cultivating schools as dynamic learning organizations. The program's initiation reflects a deliberate effort to address and elevate the educational landscape. And the RU initiative is overseen by the Norwegian Directorate of Education, with currently 6 universities and providers offering the RU program. However, there are indications that this arrangement may undergo changes in the near future. A little bit more about that later. Prior to 2010, there was an absence of systematic and formal training for school leaders on a national level. There were a few national and regional administration, leadership, management courses dating back all to the 1960s. And Jorunn Møller, one of the really good researchers in Norway, have written rather extensively about this. And the introduction of RU marked a comprehensive and strategic shift towards formalized and nationally coordinated training for school leaders. So, next slide. This slide is a model that we use on an everyday basis, showing how we organize the RU program here at NTNU, not in Norway, but at NTNU. The education, which awards 30 ECTS study points, spans over 16 months, and students are required to attend a total of 7 3-day sessions. During these sessions, the focus is on practical student activities, group work, reflections, case descriptions, and problem solving. Additionally, there are research dissemination activities and other academic lectures. Equality and co-creation are crucial keywords to describe how the program is in continuous development. The study program is tuition-free, but most students are required to cover their own travel and accommodation expenses. After 16 months, students submit a written exam of 6,000 words, which is assessed on a scale from A to B, and that concludes the study. The next slide further illustrates how RU can be an integral part of a master's degree. RU corresponds to the first academic year in a 3-year executive master's program. Additionally, the Norwegian Directorate of Education offers a set of studies, much like the Swedish model, where each study is worth 15 study points. These studies can be incorporated as components of the second year of a master's program, but still, students need to ensure that they cover the necessary subjects related to method and methodology. In this way, students can attain a master's degree almost at no cost, although some universities, including NTNU, sadly, charge full tuition for the 3rd year. And in such cases, students would need to cover their expenses themselves, unless their employer has a very deliberate budget. So, the new and adjusted Education Act is set to take effect in 2004, mandates that municipalities and counties, also known as school owners, must facilitate opportunities for prospective principals to participate in the RU program. Furthermore, school owners carry the responsibility of ensuring the adequate and accurate competence for principals as of 2024. Principals, in accordance with the recent state recommendations, are also expected to take themselves initiative in spearheading the development of competence within their respective practice. Presently, 6 universities offer the National Training Program for Principal. Thus, starting in 2024, all universities will have the chance to bid for a 5-year period, not a 6-year period like in Sweden, and that it will go for the next 5 years. Although the Directorate of Education provides clear guidelines for the implementation of RU, there will always be various approaches regarding how to offer the RU program by different providers. There are unverified indications suggesting a potential reduction in the number of universities overseeing RU and potential further development of the program. And so the competition is obvious here. These changes may signify an evolving landscape in the structure and administration of educational leadership training in the coming years. And personally, I hope that government aims for mandatory education for principals, preferably following the model in Sweden. As of now, it is up to each and everyone whether they do want to pursue an academic education in leadership or not. Within government reports and national policy solution, there is a significant emphasis on professionalization for educational leaders. However, there exists no clear-cut definition outlining the components of professionalization and how it should be practically implemented. I'm doing a survey with a colleague in Mitt-Universitetet, Maria Styf, where we have gone through all of these national policy documents, and professionalization is all over. It's mentioned so many times, but what it is and how it should be carried out, no signals at all. So in acknowledging this uncertainty, my own faculty at NTNU has embarked on an individual development program or project, to be precise, where the aim is to foster interdisciplinary collaboration and contribute to the ongoing evolution of organizational and leadership practices, and thereby preparing for the unknown aspects of the forthcoming changes. Crucially, there is a lack of conclusive and comprehensive research regarding whether the RU program actually results in improved learning outcomes for students in Norwegian schools. There are some existing reports, but they have been commissioned by the Directorate and are conducted by universities that also offer the RU program. So this is a little bit about what Susanne mentioned. We have to balance. We are going to provide the program at one side, and on the other side, we are going to research on it. So what I would really want is to highlight the need for further independent research to explore how the RU program impacts on student achievements. Getting to the end now. I'm talking fast. Showing you this picture. This is one of the rare warm summer's day in Norway. Just a few points to encapsulate some of the information I have conveyed thus far. So RU is a national strategy that has been in place since 2009. No students' fees are associated with the program. The program spans 30 ECTS credits over 16 months, aligning with the structure of a year one in an executive's master's program. Participants are expected to allocate necessary study time outside their regular work schedule. And however, some school owners permit participants to integrate study time as part of their work schedule, but that is not usually the solution. Universities must engage in competitive bidding every 5 years to offer the RU program. And that is quite difficult to live with, because we have to employ researchers and what to do if we do not get the program. So that's a problem. And the current RU arrangements is subject to evaluation and potential changes regarding content, scale, and the number of providers. And we eagerly anticipate new signals in this regard, because we are preparing for this bidding in 2024. So I think that brings us to the end. Thank you so much for the opportunity to provide a glimpse of how education for aspiring principals are conducted in Norway. And if any of you have any questions or would like to get these slides, of course, I will email them later. Thank you. I'll stop sharing.
That's lovely, Pia. Thank you so much. That was such an interesting run through. I've put a note in the chat saying do put questions here if you want to do that as part of our conversation. But if you want to stop the recording now, Nick, if you're still there and you can hear us in the background, that would be great.
Yeah, 1 second, I'll do that now. 1 sec.
Lovely. And then we can move through to a more of a confidential discussion.